In the heart of the wilderness, a haunting enigma awaits. Today we are going to uncover the unsettling tales of those who disappeared in the woods without a trace. Charles McCuller was a 19-year-old aspiring photographer from Virginia. In 1974, Charles had been doing a tour of the United States, going to all the different national parks to capture the beautiful scenery. In January of 1974, with the help of hitchhiking and bus rides, he was able to make it to Oregon, where he would stay with a friend in the area before he left for Crater Lake to take winter photos. He asked his friend, who had an all-terrain vehicle, to drive him to Crater Lake. During the drive to Crater Lake, Charles said to his friend jokingly, "If you don't hear from me in a couple of days, file a missing person report." However, when Charles failed to contact his family and friends, they eventually did file a missing person report. An extensive search was conducted at Crater Lake to find Charles, but they found nothing, no traces or any sign of Charles, nothing relating to him at all. A year later, two hitchhikers made a wrong turn while traveling through the park. They were well off the trailhead and they discovered a backpack that had a strange Volkswagen key that belonged to Charles because of how distinctive it was. It was then confirmed that the backpack did belong to Charles, so investigators launched a search around the area the backpack had been found, which was 12 miles off the trailhead. Their investigation was fruitful as they found the remains of Charles McCuller, which were bizarre to say the least. His jeans were reportedly unbuttoned and the belt had come undone, which was found sitting on a log. So his pants, they were unbuttoned and they were laying on a log. They also found his socks, no shoes, and in his socks were his feet bones. Upon further searching, they found a portion of his skull about 12 feet away, which would end up as the last thing they found of Charles McCuller. With no concrete evidence pointing to a specific cause of death or any suspects, it was determined that he had died of natural causes, specifically hypothermia, where he took off his clothes because he thought he was hot, because in some cases, victims take off their clothes because they feel too hot, but in reality they are freezing to death. His family was prepared to accept that given the circumstances. Most of his skeletal remains seemingly vanished. Charles's camera equipment had disappeared as well, along with his shirt, boots, and coat, and his head was detached from his body. When he went missing, there had been approximately 5 to 7 feet of snow, with skiers at the time commenting that the snow was so soft that even with skis, the snow went up to their waists. Now, how was he able to travel 12 miles off the trailhead in 7 feet of snow? Many deem it impossible that even a snowmobile would be able to get through 2.6 meters of powdery snow, much less a person. To this day, it is unclear what happened to Charles McCuller on that dreadful day. On the cold night of February 24th, 1978, 5 young men from Yuba, California, William Sterling, Jack Hewitt, Ted Weir, Jack Madruga, and Gary Matthews headed to California State University in Chico to attend a basketball game. When the group of men didn't return the next day, friends and family grew concerned. All 5 men suffered their own mild forms of mental issues, but they were still able to fully function in society. Gary in particular was taking medication for schizophrenia after serving in the military, having been stationed in Germany. The men were scheduled to play a game of their own and have prepared their clothing items before leaving. The police search ensued shortly after they were reported missing, and a few days later the men's car, a 1969 Mercury Montego, would be found abandoned in a remote area of the Plumas National Forest on a high mountain dirt road that was far out of the way back to Yuba City. In fact, it was 2.5 hours away from Chico where the game would be held. The car was lodged in the snow. However, investigators could not determine why the car was abandoned, as it was in good working order with no foul play and could have easily been pushed out of the snowpack it was in. In hopes of finding any signs of the men, the rangers would spend the next 5 days in search of them. Unfortunately, a snowstorm came through, covering any tracks as well as the possibility of finding them. In response to the local media coverage of the case, police received several reports of some or all men being sighted after they had left Chico. Only 2 of the sightings stood out. The first being that of Joseph Scones, who told the police he inadvertently wound up spending the night of February 24th near where the Montego was found. He said that he had seen the men on the Friday they disappeared when he was trying to push his stuck car out of the snow. Joseph suffered a mild heart attack while he was trying to push his car out, and when he saw light beams, he tried to call for the men. He called them for help, but they stopped talking and turned their headlights out. He also saw more lights from behind them, this time flashlights, that also went out when he called to them. Another witness said she saw 5 men in a red pickup truck on Saturday and Sunday, an hour from where the car was abandoned. She said Two of the men came into the store to buy food and use the phone, while the rest stayed in the truck. 4 months passed and no news about their whereabouts was heard. However, on June 4th, 1978, after the snow began melting, a man noticed a broken window at a Forest Service trailer, and when the rangers inspected the trailer, they found the decaying body of Ted Greer inside. He appeared to have died of starvation despite having food available nearby. He was wrapped in 8 sheets of blankets and his feet were badly frostbitten. It's possible that he had lived up to 13 weeks after the disappearance. The most puzzling thing to the investigators was how no fire had been set in the trailer's fireplace, which could have been easily set up and could have kept him warm. Despite having an ample supply of matches and paperback novels to use as kindling, Weir decided not to use the fireplace at all, leaving it untouched. Moreover, warm snow clothes were found in the trailer, which was also unused by Ted, which baffled investigators even more. Searchers returned to Plumas, following the road between the trailer and the site of the Montego. The next day, they found the remains that were later identified as those of Madruga and Sterling on opposite sides of the road, about 11 miles from where the car had been. Madruga's body had been practically consumed by scavenging animals, and only bones remained of Sterling, scattered all over a small area. Autopsies showed that they both died of hypothermia. Deputies think that one of them may have given in to the need to sleep that comes with the last stages of hypothermia, while the others stayed by his side and died the same way. 2 days later, Hugh's bones, skull, and personal items were discovered, and he had died of hypothermia as well. Strangely, Gary Matthews remains missing. Only his shoes were discovered in the nearby woods. To this day, the police can't figure out why the group headed in the direction they did, or why they left their perfectly functioning car, which they could have easily pushed out from the snow. Instead, they ended up separating only to starve or freeze to death. According to their families, it was uncharacteristic of them to have not helped John Scones push his car out from the snow when he called for help. Moreover, the situation at the trailer, where they neither started the fire nor have they decided to eat food, only adds to the mystery. It is important to note that Weir's family members said that he lacked common sense as a result of his mental disability. For example, he often asked why he should stop at a stop sign, and one night he had to be dragged out of his bed while the ceiling of his bedroom was burning in a house fire because he was afraid he would miss his job if he got up. However, he wasn't alone in the trailer, because the sheets all over Weir's body also suggested that one of the others had been there with him, and his feet would have been in too much pain for him to hold them over his body himself. So whoever was in there either didn't see the fireplace or decided not to use it. On the 19th of July 1991, a 12-year-old boy by the name of Jared Negretti was on a camping trip with a scout troop that consisted of 14 other boys. Jared was on the shorter and heavier side. He stood at 5'2" and weighed 150 pounds. They were hiking towards the summit of Mount San Gorgonio in the San Bernardino National Forest in Southern California. At around 6 p.m., another group of hikers noticed Jared straggling behind and notified the scout leader at the summit, but he said he would pick up Jared on the way down. When the scout leader descended to pick up Jared, he was nowhere to be seen. It is believed that Jared might have taken the wrong trail and ended up lost as a result of being separated from the group. As soon as the scout leader realized that Jared had gone missing, he took the troop back to base camp and hiked 5 miles in the dark to get help. Soon after, sheriffs, deputies, along with search rescue teams were searching for Jared. They began searching over 130 square miles, hoping to spot any signs of Jared. During the first 3 days, they focused on a 6-mile area where a footprint that was believed to be from Jared's tennis shoe was found. They also found candy wrappers and beef jerky believed to have been dropped by Jared. Most importantly, Jared's camera was found. On the film roll, there were 12 pictures, most of which were landscapes taken by Jared when he was still with the troop, but the last one shows a self-portrait where he seemingly pointed the camera at his face, aided with a flash of the camera. His family believed he took the photo at nighttime because the camera flash went off. It is likely he lost the camera when he slid down a portion of the mountainside. Over the next 2 weeks, at least 70 officers went out looking for Jared. Some were airlifted by a helicopter and some on horseback were deployed. Some helicopters were equipped with infrared scanning as well. As many as 3,000 people lodged 45,000 hours searching for 50 square miles, but in the end, no further clues were discovered. To this day, no one knows what truly happened to him. There are theories surrounding this. Some believe he fell off the trail and slid down the mountainside, but it really seems unlikely that his body wouldn't have been found by the search group. Others believe he was a victim of a bear attack, but that seems even more unlikely because there were no signs of blood or any animal attack. Some believe he was abducted by a predator, as this mountain was well used by hikers. With all of this uncertainty regarding how Jared went missing, what's certain is that his remains have never been found to this day. On June 14th, 1969, 6-year-old Dennis Martin, his brother, his father, and his grandfather headed up to Smoky Mountains to go camping. This was a family tradition, where on Father's Day, the family would go camping. They would head to the same campsite they always used, and they hiked to Spencefield where they would spend the night. They would encounter another camper who happened to see Dennis and his brother playing there. He went up to Dennis's father and said, "Hey, I have 2 kids, they're about the same age as your sons. Would it be okay if I brought my kids by and they could play together?" Dennis's father agreed, and soon enough the 4 boys were playing hide and seek. Dennis, his brother, and the camper's sons thought it would be a fun idea to pull a prank on the adults. They would jump out simultaneously and scare the adults. They decided to split up. The older kids went in one direction, while Dennis went in the opposite direction. The only reason he was separated from the group that was he was wearing a bright red shirt that would make him easily visible and foiled the plan. The kids scared the adults and they had a good laugh. However, when Dennis didn't jump out, they thought he simply missed his cue. Dennis's father wasn't worried at first because he watched his son hide behind the bush. He knew where he was. When he called out for Dennis, saying, "Dennis, come out, I know you're there," he received no response. When Dennis's father approached the bush and looked behind it, there was nobody there. This came as a massive shock because remember, he watched his son hide behind that exact bush. Where could he have gone? It would only be 5 minutes until his father became increasingly concerned and began searching for him. He ran down the trail for nearly 2 miles and screamed Dennis's name, looking for his son and hoping for a response. The rest of the family had broken up and was searching the area because he couldn't have gone far. After all, he was literally right there. When they couldn't find him during the initial search, they notified the park rangers for some help. The biggest search in the park's history ensued with 1,400 searchers. That included firefighters, park rangers, Boy Scouts, the National Guards, the Green Berets, so the Special Forces got involved, and several civilian volunteers who decided to help. Unfortunately, heavy rains and thunder during the first day's search inundated the area, making the search infinitely more challenging. The conditions got so bad that they had to wait until the morning. There were helicopters deployed and search dogs as well, all combing a 60 square mile area in search for Dennis. They were looking everywhere, but they found nothing. No traces, no scent, and there was nothing connected to Dennis Martin anywhere. It's as if he was never there. Years later, when David Politis was doing his research for missing 411 cases and was researching the Dennis Martin case, he interviewed many families that were out camping at the same time Dennis had gone missing, and one of those families was the Keys family, who was also camping in the park. They thought they heard a boy scream, and shortly after they saw what they thought to be a bear in the woods with something slung over its shoulder. After taking a good look, they realized what they saw wasn't a bear, but a man running through the sparse trees. When he did finally report what he saw, the authorities dismissed it, saying it was too far away from Spencefield and the time frame was off. Dennis Martin remains missing to this day, and nobody knows what truly happened to him on that dreadful day. These have been 4 of the strangest and most disturbing cases of people going missing in the forest. Let me know what you think. What do you think happened to them? Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.